Good afternoon to each and everyone. Welcome to our third quarter, English 9, week 5 and 6. Our lesson for today is types and features of poetry. What is poetry? Poetry is a type of literature based on the interplay of words and rhythm. It, it often employs rhyme and meter, or a set of rules governing the number and arrangement of syllables in each line. Or in other words, poetry is writing that formulates a concreted imaginative awareness of experience in language chosen and arranged to create a specific emotional response through meaning, sounds, and rhythm. Or something like to poetry, especially in beauty of expression. In poetry, words are strung together to form sounds, images, and ideas that might be too complex or abstract to describe directly. Stanzas in poetry are similar to paragraphs in prose. Both stanzas and graphics include connected thoughts and are set off by a space. The number of lines varies in different kinds of stanzas, but it is uncommon for stanza to have more than 12 lines. Reading in a poem paves the way to making meaning in life. It allows you to share certain experiences. Often sometimes you find and share something more in common with the poem's content than you originally thought. This makes the poem meaningful. Okay, so any questions regarding poem? So if none, let's proceed to lyric versus epic. Imagine you're driving along in your car when your favorite song comes on the radio. If you're like to most people, you will immediately start singing along without even realizing it. Did you know that when this happens, you're actually singing poetry? All songs can be considered poetry. In fact, they fall under the category of lyric poetry. Lyric poetry expresses personal emotions or thoughts of the speaker, just like the song of today. Also, just like song, lyric poems always have a musical quality or a specific melody which makes it easy for you to sing along with. The term lyric poetry actually comes from the ancient Greek word lyre, which refers to the instrument in that era that accompanied the reading of the lyric poem, almost like the first version of a live concert. Okay, so don't forget to take note because I will sending you an activity through module and quizzes. So listen and jot down notes in order to answer those tasks. Okay, so any questions? Okay, so if none, so let's proceed to the next slide. Lyric poetry, for the most part, is a short and written in a first person point of view. There is always some specific mood or emotion being expressed. Often that mood is about the extremes in life, mostly love or death or some other intense emotional experience. No matter the theme, to all lyric poems are known for brevity. So what is brevity? Okay, so brevity is a shortness of duration. Okay, the next, emotional intensity and musical quality. There are many types of lyric poems, each with their own format and purpose. So let's take a look at some. An epic poem is a long narrative poem that is usually about heroic deeds and events that are significant to the culture of the poet. Many ancient writers used epic poetry to tell tales of intense adventures and heroic feats. Some of the most famous literary masterpieces in the world were written in the form of epic poetry. Epic poems were practically common in the ancient world because they were ideal for expressing stories orally. These works continue to be well regarded today. Many high school students read famous examples of epic poetry, such as Gilgamesh and the Iliad. Okay, now let's proceed to rhyme. Okay, so we already discussed it to our previous topic. So let's have recall. Okay, so rhyme refers to the repetition of sounds in poem. In English, we usually use the term rhyme to refer to the repetition of the final sounds in the line or end rhyme. Letters are often used to denote a rhyme schemes. A new letter is ascribed to each of the different sounds. For example, in the following example, the rhyme scheme is described as above or AB AB. Internal rhyme occurs in the middle of a line, as in these lines from Coleridge. In mist or cloud, on mast or shroud, or whilst on the night through fog smoke white. So this is the ancient mariner. Poetry does not rhyme is called free verse poetry. Example, the people along the sand all turn and look one way. They turn their back on the land. They look at the sea all day, from neither out far nor in deeply by Robert Frost. Okay, rhythm is derived from rhythmos, Greek, which means measured motion. Is a literary device that demonstrates the long and short patterns through stress and unstressed syllables, particularly in verse form. Okay, example, shall I compare thee to a summer day, or lambic pentameter, etc. 5 metrical feet of alternating and stressed syllables. Okay, so let's discuss what is meter. So if there's anybody who can share their ideas, so you are free to share your ideas. So meter is a unit of rhythm in poetry. The pattern of the bets, I mean the pattern of the bets, it also called a foot. Each foot has a certain number of syllables in it, usually 2 or 3 syllables. The difference in types of meter is which syllables are accented and which are not. Many forms of meter are broken into feet, which is a specific group of syllables type or syllable types. In English, these feet are combinations of 2 to 3 stressed and stressed syllables, which are then repeated to form a line of verse. In Classical Latin and Classical Greek, a metrical foot contains a combination of a long and shorty syllables. Here are the most common metrical feet in English. Lamb. Okay, so there are 2 syllables. The first of which is unstressed and the second of which is stressed. For example, compute, dispel, and agree. Kibi, truce. 2 syllables, the first of which is stressed and the second of which is unstressed. For example, argue, bishop, and the doctor. Then C, spandi. 2 syllables, both of which are stressed. For example, ice cream, hotline, and the cell phone. So all of the letter in a word are bold. So if we compare in the others, so this one is all bold letter because 2 syllables or both of which are stressed together. So ice cream, hotline, and the cell phone. Key. Next, ducktail. 3 syllables. Okay, so this time, three syllables, the first of which is stressed, and the next two of which are unstressed. So those are the example. Elephant. So the first is stressed, and the next is unstressed. Then possible and the Trinity. Okay, next, anapest. So three syllables, the first two of which are unstressed, and the third of which is stressed. Okay, for example, of a kind. Of is the first syllables which are unstressed, and kind is the third of which is strength. Stress, I mean. Okay, next, souvenir, then understand. Okay, so let's proceed to sound devices. Okay, alliteration. This device involves the repetition of the essential consonant sound of a of a series of words, often consecutively. Alliteration is most easily explained to students through looking at a few simple tongue twisters, such as Peter, Piper, or she sells, she shells. Example, Betty Butter bought a bit of butter, but the bit of butter Betty Butter bought was better, so Betty Butter bought a better bit of butter. Okay, so please read. Okay, so thank you. Okay, next, assonance. Similarly to alliteration, assonance involves the repetition of sounds in a series of words, often consecutive words. However, rather than repeating the essential sounds, assonance focuses on the internal vowel sounds that are repeated. Example. We can find many examples of assonance in poetry and song. Here's an example from the poetry of Edgar Allan Poe. Hear the mellow wedding bells. Okay, next, the consonants. Consonance is the consonant-focused counterpart to assonance. It involves the repetition of consonant sounds in the middle or at the end of words, as distinguished from alliteration where the essential sounds is repeated. Example, the crow struck through the thick cloud like a rocket. Next, onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia refers to the process of creating words that sound like the very thing they refer to. For many students, the first introduction to onomatopoeia goes back to learning animal sounds as an infant. Words such as oink, chirp, oof, and meow can all be thought of as onomatopic or onomatopic. Example: aside from animal noises, the names of sounds themselves are often onomatopic. For example, bang, thud, crash, boom, swoosh. Okay, so any questions? So if none, so let's proceed to figurative, connotative language metaphor. Okay, metaphor. Metaphors make comparisons between things by stating that one thing literally is something else. Metaphors are used to bring clarity to ideas by forming connections. Often, metaphors reveal implicit similarities between two things or concepts. We can find lots of examples of metaphors in our everyday speech. For example, she's an old flame. Time is money. Life is a roller coaster. Key. Simile. Unlike metaphors that make comparison by saying one thing is something else, similes work by saying something is similar to something else. They commonly come in two forms. Does that make a comparison using as at does that make a comparison using like. Example, she is as strong as an ox. She sings like a nightingale. Okay, next we have the personification. Personification is a particular type of metaphor where a non-human thing or idea is ascribed human qualities or abilities. This can be in the form of a single phrase or line or extended in the form of stanza or the whole poem. Example, the moon was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. Okay, so that will be all. Thank you for your listening and thank you for participating our discussion. So see you next week and God bless.